The view from the Mapo Bridge
That's
is
why I
one
do
of the
it from the
best in the
side.
city. At night, Seoul's glittering skyline stretches across the horizon, standing as proof of how far South Korea has really come. But for many young Koreans, this picturesque view was the last thing they ever saw. The bright lights of the city contrast with the darkness of the Han River. Its strong cold currents promise an escape from the high-pressure world above. Because of its accessibility and location, Mapo Bridge has gained a dark reputation as a favored spot for jumpers. As South Korea's mental health crisis worsened in the early 2010s, Samsung was hired to try and reverse the rising
Oh
number
shit,
of casualties
okay.
on the bridge, and their solution was rebranding to the Bridge of Life, with a set of LED signs running along each side of the bridge's railings. Written on these signs was a series of optimistic slogans and pictures of happy families. But as you can imagine, this only had the opposite effect of what Samsung intended. And in the year after they were added in 2013, incidents on the bridge increased by over 400%. Shortly afterwards, the scheme was scrapped, replaced by more conventional physical barriers.
What the
A
fuck?
much higher fence was then put along with CCTV
Yeah, fuck
and
it.
pressure sensors to alert rescue workers. Multiple
Just
phones
bad
were
at the
installed
humor of
across
it.
the length of the bridge with direct links to crisis hotlines. While casualties did eventually fall, not all of these measures worked as intended, as shown by the Korea Herald's interview with one potential jumper on a similar bridge. Referred to as aid to protect her identity, the 19-year-old woman was just moments away from jumping before she was held back by a passerby. Before trying to jump, she had used one of the crisis phones, but strong wind stopped her from hearing the person on the other side. In a conversation afterwards, the passerby who had just saved her life asked the girl why she had done what she did. Quote, "Your mother would have been so sad," she said. A then responded, "My mother and I don't get along. She told me you're good for nothing." And this brief exchange shined a light on what could be the root of the problem, something which slogans and guardrails have failed to deal with. South Korea's young people should have inherited the benefits of South Korea's economic miracle. The country pulled itself up from tragedy and poverty to become one of the world's richest nations, both financially and culturally. But that promised utopia has been turned upside down. With the lowest birth rates in the world, political chaos, cultural division, and crushing inequality, life is getting harder and harder for young South Koreans every day. But the biggest pressure on them is how brutally competitive education.
I think it's mostly with Asian parents, they have so much expectations with their children. Like, that is the most damaging part about this culture. Like, everybody, like, they want their goals to be achieved by their offsprings. Like, that is kind of fucked up when you think about it. You know, it's really sad. Hopefully, the children that they grow up like that learns to not give a flying fuck what your parents think. You know? Like, that's my good advice. Like, the world is your oyster. You can do anything you want as long as you have the courage to face the consequences. Do anything you want, anything you like. You know? Simple as that.
Has become in the country. You see, day-to-day life for the average South Korean high school student is eye-wateringly long and stressful. Let's just have a look. If you're a Korean student, your school will most likely start at 8 AM sharp, meaning you'll have to get up far before then. So let's say if you're living in Seoul, you can expect to spend over an hour traveling to school. Add in the rest of the morning routine, and the tightest you can start is 6:30. Once you arrive, lessons begin, and you'll be working until the end of the day with just a short break for lunch. While most kids have some friends in these classes, they can't ever let their guard down either. As if you're in the system, the competitive nature of your education system pits you against every other kid. Whether it's meddling parents, teachers, or just the way the tests are graded, it's all set up for you to create harsh rivalries, especially at the top. And as you get older as a student, these rivalries will get even more intense as the end draws closer. Finally, you'll finish school around 4:30.
Man, fortunately, we didn't have any problems like this when I was studying.
But you'd be mistaken if you thought that was anywhere close to the end. As you might only just have enough time to make some instant noodles for dinner as you then head for your extra classes at night school, or otherwise known as Hagwon. As you
night
arrive,
school?
This will be even more intense and strict.
Oh my fucking god, that's a nightmare.
Every hour you spend, it has to be paid for. Every minute is an investment from your family. Your entire parents' life savings often hang in the balance, and the pressure is insanely immense. To put into perspective, lower income families spend nearly as much on private education as they do on food. So it's obviously a lot of pressure to have on your shoulders. And then finally between 8 and 10 PM or sometimes even later, Hagwon lessons end and your school day is finally over. But of course, that's only if you forget about homework, one of the most important things of all here. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking
Fucking
there just isn't enough
Christ.
time for that. How could
You
schools
come
ever
out of the
expect kids
fucking
to get
school
this
at
done?
8
Well, the
p.m.
answer
and
is
you
that
have to
most
do
of them don't,
homework?
really. It's
God.
incredibly common for parents to do at least some of
I
these
thought my
assignments for
school
their
days
children.
are pretty
Kids
bad.
unlucky enough to have parents who are too busy just heavy.
So here in India, how, at least in my state, how schools work, we have to be in school at 9 a.m. and then the school will end at 4:30 p.m. So if you go into tuitions, like that would be way more expensive. So you have to go in the early 6 p.m. if you're going like a 10th and 12th grade. So that's like the public exams ones. So you have to go for tuitions like that. I kind of tried to go for a while, but I just couldn't. I just quit. Like it, 10th grade and then the plus 2 is the crucial. Like they just the parents and the teachers would just juice the students for that 2 grades, it was brutal,
Even more work on their plates.
And then we saw exactly by the time when I reached home, it was 6 p.m. These people come to home at 8 p.m. Like, Jesus Christ. That's not even, and I was so sick of it. Like, I was doing that for the past 18 years, and as soon as I go into the college, I just said, I am not gonna do this anymore. Jesus, it was so exhausting.
Kids might be getting back at about 11 p.m. or sometimes even later. Then they've got to somehow get sleep
Yeah,
as quickly
this
as
is
possible.
brutal. I can feel them.
And staring at books and screens all day with incredible stress. And if you don't fall asleep, you'll barely get 6 hours of sleep before school happens all over again.
A recent survey showed that young South Korean students are suffering from lack of sleep, and more than half of students chose study as a reason of their sleep deprivation. Especially high school students average 6 hours and 3 minutes, which is about an hour and 15 minutes less than the US high school student sleep amount.
This is a silent killer, and one of the worst physical aspects of this whole system. One of the strange things right now with the recent TikTok ban is that you can go to any data broker's websites and buy anyone's data just for a few bucks, and it's completely legal. These giant big companies with poor security are getting hacked every day, and your personal information is being sold on the dark web so spammers, scammers, and identity thieves can target you, and they face zero repercussions from it. And the problem isn't with banning TikTok, but it's that if they can do this, why don't they protect you from these similar practices? As it's on us to protect ourselves, which is why I use Aura, today's sponsor. Aura keeps you safe online by doing all of the hard work for you.
Did they actually name their company called Aura?
Information and submit opt-out requests
Aura.
on your behalf. Give Aura a few weeks.
Jesus
You'll start
Christ.
seeing your information on these sites when you search yourself, which leads to less spam. Aura will also continuously monitor the dark web and alert you if they find your personal information is exposed.
Yeah, it pretty much. So what happens in our school system? In 10th grade, depending on how many marks you are getting, so we had a public exam with 500 marks. 5 subjects, your main native language, English, maths, science, social. So 5 subjects, 500 marks. And depending on how many marks you are getting, you can pick a group in the 11th grade and then 12th grade. So we had 12 grades. Each grade happens for a period of a year. So 1 year. So we have to study 12 grades. By the time you are going into the 12th grade, you will be around 18 or 17. So basically, how well you are doing with the 12th grade, you can go into college. So basically, it starts at 10th grade. So you can take a group like biology, computer, commerce, and something economics and something like that. So if you fuck it up and then not get good marks, you cannot pick biology or computer science in a good group. Oh, don't worry about me. I aced it. And then I got into the biology group, which I fucking hated. I was not into biology at all. And then I just tanked after that. So I wanted to pick a computer, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get it. But it is what it is, You have one plan and the God laughs. And so with the 10th grade, you can pick groups, and with that group, you have to study for 2 years. So 10th and 11th grade is pretty much very intertwined and similar. And then the books, oh my god, the books are awful too. And then you have to light the publication the second time into the pool trade. And then with that, you can pick into the college. Like if you have like Toth made has 1,200 marks, you know? So in 1,200 marks, you have to pick about 1,100. You could go for medicine field or something like that. Like education, like if you want to be a doctor, you have to at least have like 50,000 grand or something like that. $50,000, something like that in India. If you have like a decent amount of marks, like 1,100, and if you want to go into a good college, it is expensive, hella expensive. And then there is so many issues as well. This is happening in India as well, especially in my states. So many people are just game overing themselves just because they couldn't get into the medicine field because of the NEET exam. There is an exam system that's implemented by the government that they kind of filters many people out of it. It's kind of sad, but it is what it is, Yeah, but there is no other choice though. Like, here's the problem. If you have so many people, there is so many competition. So, for example, in this year, around 1,000 people got first marks in 10th grade in my state itself. 1,000 people. If 1,000 people gets the same mark and they were in the first place, would you call that place a first place? So that's why the filtering system, the cutoff marks, it would be extremely high and throttling so they can filter out of the people because there is so many people on the same place, So that's why the cutoff system and the filtering system they have, the most of the private companies and the colleges have a really brutal, especially when the country has more population. I think South Korea is kind of doing something like that as well. In order to, this is how they became a bigger country. This is how, through this kind of sacrifice, they were able to have a country that was basically going bankrupt and then becoming a richest country, right? So it's just simple logic. Here's the thing, the reality is, I don't know if it's a good thing to say, but this is the reality. I think in our world right now, the most easiest accessible thing is probably people, very easily replaceable as well, there are so many of them. So anything that has vast amount of quantity, it loses its value. So the values of human beings in general gotten way worse,
Asked if anyone
it's not as valuable. I don't know how to phrase it, but you get the idea, right? It's kind of a sad reality, but it is what it is. And here's the thing, the future is not looking brighter either because of the implementation of AI, artificial intelligence, and automation makes this even worse. People with no skills will be Arnold Schwarzenegger? Oh, it's not playing? Oh, God damn it. I think I might have to mix it up. Wait, let me see. Did he has lost the time? It played? Oh, really? I couldn't hear it. Okay, nice. Glad to hear that. Just the sound was low? Okay. How do I increase that? I think I have increased in more, but yes. Not sure. Oh, it is a max. Okay. So, where was I? Oh, yeah, the automation and automation and artificial intelligence make this even more uh, worse, I think. And then this is gonna, I don't think it's gonna happen in our generation, like in our lifetime, maybe give it like that this century, I would say, but the next century is gonna be a freaking war zone. You know, the implementation and then the robotics and the artificial intelligence will be improved so rapidly to the point humans won't be even needed for anything anymore. You know, it's gonna be a dystopia. What are you gonna do? Like, how can you manage? Like, for example, take India for example, or take China for example. If everything is gonna be automated and robotic, where the people are gonna go? Like, what are they gonna do to survive? You know? Like, with the lack of resources and the lack of job, like, it's gonna lead people to hate their government and lead people to be more aggressive, and then it will lead people to famine. People just want to have a normal life, you know? Have a roof on top of their heads, have food, and then have a peaceful life, pretty much. If anything that they're being determined to it, people will oppose it, and people will be fighting against it. You know? And then it will lead to war, famine, so many bad things. I think the next century is gonna be probably the world defining, most likely. You know? Lucky for us, I don't know. Like, if our luck ran out, I think it could happen in like 2050. You know? In 25 years. Like, you've seen how the technology and the robotics gotten, like how better it was gotten in the past 25 years. Like, a computer, like in 2000, can barely run a 12-bit video game, right? Like, it can barely run a Super Mario. Now you can go with ray tracing, artificial intelligence, and so many other things, right? So, imagine this kind of improvement in the next 25 years. You know? Like, it's unpredictable. Like, that is the horrifying part of this. Like, you cannot even predict which direction it's gonna go. Like, randomly someone is gonna come up with some game-changing scientific discovery, and then it's gonna change the way of living. Yeah. Who would have thought that people are gonna have their phones 24/7 with them, like 25 years ago. 25 years ago, the concept of a smartphone doesn't even exist. But now everybody has one. You know, some things will change, but not in a dramatic way. But this AI, that's why NVIDIA is dumping all their resources in order to push the AI thing so much, because they know for a fact this is the, what do you call it, the future, pretty much. But most of the richer companies invested in their future that became rich. Most of the bigger companies, I would say. For example, Facebook, Amazon, NVIDIA, Microsoft. Like, those people invested in their future, and then because of that, they became rich, right? So I think NVIDIA is taking the lead on this one, and then they're going for the AI market. We will see how it goes.
Tries to use this information.
I think it won't happen in an instant, but it's gonna be very slow. The people are already not getting married in South Korea, right? Because they know at this point it's happening in India as well. This is happening all over the world. People literally now think marriage as an expense. How many people think this way? I myself think this way. Because it's just an expense. It's too much. People can't afford to be married anymore. It's gotten that bad. You know, that's why the freaking birth rate is declining, because people don't want to deal with it. Getting a child and then raising them is very expensive these days.
Plus, they'll also give you up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen. And if you use my link aura.com/moon, you'll get 14 days for free. That will be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed.
This is a good video. It let me talk about so many
Studies have
things.
shown that this will impair teens' development while making it harder for them to resist their own impulses, which is not a good mix when their life demands so much discipline and hard work.
Yes, you're evolving so
Almost
fast.
an
Oh
entire
yes,
culture
it's
bases your
insanely
worth on
evolving
how well
fast.
you rise up in this education system. So then, what is all of this building up? Bases your good mix
Babe.
when their teens' development while making it harder for them to resist is no joke. Find out if any of your personal data is exposed. The sleep deprivation
Okay,
is
let's
no
watch it.
joke. Studies have shown that this will impair teens' development while making it harder for them to resist their own impulses, which is not a good mix when their life demands so much discipline and hard work for them, all whilst an entire culture bases your worth on how well you rise up in this education system. So then, what is all of this building up
Yeah.
to? Well, after years and years of these long days you're doing, the end goal is a good score in the final exam, the CSAT. This 8-hour marathon is mostly a test of memorization, with harsh time limits and some of the hardest questions in the world all mixed in. Just like most of the tests our students have been taking throughout their time in school, the final result is decided by how their score compares to the average. It means everyone is always competing with each other. The reward for making the top percentile is massive, a coveted spot at the top Seoul University. The
Man, this game that reminds you of how I get board exams. Like I remember doing exactly what she was doing. Just having a wristwatch like this.
making the top
Damn.
percentile is massive, a coveted
Sorry,
spot at the
relatable.
top Seoul University. The big companies that dominate South Korean society like Samsung and Hyundai almost exclusively hire from them. One of these jobs will give you and your family access to a good wage, a good reputation, and a higher place in Korea's hierarchical society. Of course, at these jobs, you'll probably work even longer hours, but that is the best outcome. Failure for these kids who can't afford a redo is almost a dead end. It means the shame of disappointing your family, your culture, and your country, and then a choice between destitution or a lifetime of hard, menial labor. You can see the effects of all of this pressure just by watching interviews with students from just after they've taken the exam.
일단 워낙 기대했던 시험이었고 또 1년 동안 되게 열심히 준비했던 시험이다 보니까 시원섭섭하네요.
머리는 어떻게 이렇게 됐을까요?
아 이게 항상 그 고비인 부분들이 있을 때마다 제가 머리를 쥐어잡는 습관이 있어가지고 그것 때문에 좀 이렇게 붕붕 뜨게 된 것 같아요.
One described the feeling of ending it like being let go after being tied up for a long time.
하다가 묶였다가 해방된 느낌이라고 생각해요.
지금까지
Damn.
준비했던 이제 여러 가지 노력들을 이번 시험에서 다 표현할 수 있었던 것 같아 좋은 경험이 됐던 것 같고요.
Others scream as they let out all the pent-up emotions they've had to contain for years. Most are just relieved, looking forward to a brief period of life that isn't all about studying or working. However, for those kids thinking they didn't do as well as
It's like they've been returning from a
they could have,
freaking war.
other emotions are flowing through
Look
their
at these
heads.
people.
수능을 본 후 어머니가 쓰신 돈이 굉장히 크신데 죄송하다는 죄책감이 먼저
These interviews are great for accessing young people's personal experiences, but this small collection fails to illustrate just how widespread and deadly young mental health problems have become for South Korea. For years, it's been the leading cause for loss of life in South Koreans under 40. South Korea also has the highest rate for any OECD country, a collection of developed economies like the UK, the US, and Australia. While academic stress is a major part of this, it definitely isn't the whole story. Lots of countries and cultures put the same kinds of pressures on their young people. Maybe not to the exact same extent, but it doesn't work as a full explanation, as we still haven't revealed why South Korea's young people are so much worse off than the rest of the developed world. Instead, social media use stands out as a likely suspect, so often the
Wait, what? Squid Game reflects a landscape of despair? What the hell?
Instead, social media use stands out as a likely suspect, as South Korea also leads the world in both internet coverage and download speeds, as over 97% of the country is interconnected online. Social media use is also somehow much higher than in Western countries, as 92% of South
Okay.
Koreans now use social media in some way, with the average user spending over an hour on it every day. The landscape is quite different, however,
Real.
a mixture between the Chinese model and Western apps. Like in China, nearly everyone uses a domestically made app which offers a mixture of different uses and services. Korea's version is called
Okay.
KakaoTalk. But unlike China, the market was far more open for Western apps to take hold, and of these, Instagram was by far the most successful, with over 60% of Korean social media users having an active account, and it's also taking control of the youth market. Despite being less popular with the overall population, young people spend nearly twice as much time on Instagram compared to KakaoTalk. Its popularity does make sense.
Yeah, I wonder
South
why.
Korea is a very image-dominated
I've been in
culture.
in
South Korea,
Instagram
just
for a
like
while.
China, because of their shared
I wonder why.
heritage, puts a bunch of focus on reputation and saving face. The image you put forward to your friends and community means everything, because acting against cultural norms reflects poorly on you and your family. And this isn't necessarily a negative thing. A brief stroll through most Western cities proves some people could definitely use a bit of shame sometimes. But regardless, the harsh competition we mentioned before has its roots in this kind of culture. Instagram, as the ultimate image-focused platform, has played incredibly well into this culture. It has spiraled things out of control, popularizing the promotion of complete fantasy life for everyone else to see. Airbrushing and filters that were once reserved for beauty magazines have spread to every part of the online world. It's been pushed forward by the
Greg,
entertainment
hello,
industry,
it's been a
who's always
while.
had
How are you
the ability to
doing?
chase perfection and
How's your
unrealistic
day?
standards.
Hope you're doing
This
good.
shift in culture is epitomized by the rise of so-called virtual influencers in South Korea. Even with all the filters, makeup, and surgery, regular influencers and models
How are
still
you?
weren't
How are you?
perfect enough for marketing teams. So they just turned to completely artificial people to advertise their products. Oh Rosie was the first of these corporate creations. Permanently 21,
I'm okay,
she
just
launched
got up and
herself
getting
on
ready for the
Instagram
day.
in 2020
Okay,
to
good
fill
morning,
whatever
good morning.
advertising niche she was required to. The benefits for these companies were endless, as she never gets tired, never refuses a job, doesn't need training, never acts out in public, and never asks for a pay rise. Sometimes
Happy
she
is the
plays on her
weekend?
own, other times
Nice.
her mathematically
Happy
perfect
weekend.
head is stuck on the top of real human models.
How are you,
In the
Lisa? I'm
following
doing
3
good.
months,
I'm
hundreds
doing
of
good.
different
Thank you for
virtual
asking.
influencers just like her came onto the scene. They created virtual actors, musicians, and even whole K-pop bands. Any celebrity niche you could name could be filled, and these virtual influencers are now slowly making their way across the ocean. As of late March 2025,
Rain models with the AI. That's an
each of them have
AI?
begun using virtual models in their advertising. By superimposing
What
AI
the
images of the
fuck?
models on top of pictures of real people, they can easily attain these inhuman levels of perfection. South Korea is at the forefront of this very dark revolution and is having
I
all
thought that
four
was
factions
real
of
people. God damn
something
it.
that's an omen for the West. And
I'm
regular
doing good
people
at it,
dealing with
Greg.
the body
Thank you
image
for
problems
asking.
this
Really
causes
appreciate it.
often fall through the cracks. But it's telling that even the most beautiful and famous celebrities can also fall victim to the same types of negative thoughts. The K-pop industry blends the worst parts of South Korean competitive pressure with the negative effects of its body image culture. Soo Lee was just one of the many men and women pushed into this industry at a young age and molded into a K-pop icon. Now at first her career seemed like a classic success story. Trained from a young age, when her K-pop group FX released their first singles and album, they immediately shot up to the top of the charts. Before the rise of BTS, they were the most internationally recognizable K-pop band in the world. But unlike most K-pop stars,
Okay.
she challenged the constant demand for perfection. She would often post pictures on social media without any makeup, challenging the beauty standards of the time. She would even openly talk about subjects that are taboo in South Korean culture, like mental health or even romance. This brought her wave after wave of unrelenting hate comments, personal insults, and death threats. And after a period of depression relating to the constant abuse, she sadly took her own life.
Singer and actress Sol Lee,
Oh,
who is a
shit.
member of the K-pop girl band FX,
Fucking
was found dead
Christ.
Monday afternoon. Sol Lee had been harassed by malicious online comments throughout her
It's gonna get
career,
real
and
awful
her
trying to
Facebook
figure out
profile
what's real and what's
experiences
fabricated.
cyber
True.
Police said in a statement that the 25-year-old had been suffering from severe depression and how for now they suspect she may have taken her own life.
In the wake of her passing,
My
South Korea
God.
implemented strict laws on cyberbullying, allowing anyone to report it and enabling
I believe
law
last
enforcement
month,
to
I
expose
see.
people's real names if they ever leave hate comments. But the systemic issues that led to this tragedy remained, and it's no wonder, with such a massive focus on your outward image, that people are willing to do anything to match the insane beauty standards. So it's not really a shock that South Korea is the plastic surgery capital of the world. The industry is literally worth over $1.7 billion, and it's predicted to
Oh
grow
yeah,
to
I
over
heard
$5
about
billion
this.
by 2032, truly showing how normalized plastic surgery has now become in South Korean culture.
You obviously don't need it at all, both of you, but would you ever consider having surgery done yourself?
있죠. 있어요. 저도 이제 눈이 조금 작아서 여기 뒤에 살짝 이렇게 톡 하고 싶거든요.
더 예뻐지는 걸 보면
What the hell happened to her?
본 적이 있지만
Most of the time in South Korea, people get surgery to try and look more naturally beautiful. For years, beauty standards have aimed at this idea, characterized by features like a V-shaped chin, pale skin, a small nose, large eyes, and a clear complexion. Never mind that lots of these things aren't all that
Burn
common
marks?
Korean
Yeah,
people
looks
to
like
begin
it.
with. Eyelids are a common cause of tension for people concerned they don't match this standard. The so-called double eyelid surgery is now one of the most common in Korea to replicate this feature. It's often given to young women by their parents as a graduation present. In an interview, one anonymous woman talked about how
Oh my god, that is so awful. Getting a fucking surgery as a graduation present? God. What the fuck are they doing over there?
and how she had felt pressured by her family to get the surgery. Quote, I was satisfied with my own appearance, but my mum and grandmother seemed unhappy with how I looked before I had the surgery. I was pushed to feel grateful that my parents could afford the surgery cost even though I never asked them for it. And if family pressure wasn't enough, these surgeries are often pushed by advertising.
Oh my god, I don't think this is a real feature.
I was pushed to feel grateful that my parents could afford the surgery cost even though I never asked them for it. And if family pressure
This is an ad. Like, no shot. This is straight up an ad
wasn't
with the
enough, these
Photoshop.
surgeries are often pushed by advertisements and influencers as well.
Yeah, look at that
Posters
ad.
and
So,
billboards
Jesus
show before and
Christ.
after images, promising that they can make you beautiful in the eyes of society as well. Unfortunately, the rise of Instagram filters, airbrushing, and AI enhancements will only push plastic surgery.
Well, the funniest thing is, this is the funniest thing. America is complete opposite. Like, they are complete 180 compared to this one. Like, man, that is the beauty of the world, isn't it?
Further,
Jesus
as the beauty
Christ.
standard becomes even more artificial, the results of plastic surgery will only get closer to matching this look. The results are just lots of people left worrying about how they look more than anything else. Like narcissists from Legend, they miss out on life because they can't see beyond their own reflection. And we've only just scratched the surface of the amount of pressure on South Korean
Yenige bara
society,
hello
especially
hello.
on their
How are you
young
doing?
It's especially bad because lots of these costs and societal
No, we're
factors
doing it.
determine the birth rate.
But the Kims need help. They've just applied
Well,
for a
practically
recently
doomed
introduced
from the
government
start.
child-rearing grant.
Facial pressure, family.
Grant of 500
Family
to
pressure,
700
fools won't
euros
realize how
per month for 2
distorted they
years
will
is
since
the latest attempt to
they've been
address South
severing
Korea's
it,
growing
yes.
demographic crisis. Many blame the low birth rate on the high cost of living, which has soared in recent years.
The culture around education and the costs associated
Yeah,
with
it's simply
it
the
mean
cost
that
of
more
living
and
is
less families
higher.
have children. It's just too expensive, especially recently with the crushing rise in the cost of living.
Yeah,
And
see,
as South
just
Korean
like I
society
said,
has gotten more
happens in
focused
India
on
as well.
appearances and moved further into the virtual world, it's also ruined the relationship and dating scene. The standards are sky high because of social media.
What?
People are more
Nah.
anxious than ever, as everyone just works so much they never have real time for themselves. And the result of all of this is the lowest birth rate in the world, and it's going to be putting even more pressure on the few people that are left. They're not just facing all of these problems, but they're also facing the prospect of supporting a massive generation of elderly people in the near future. And as millions of people leave the workforce and need full-time care or financial support, there aren't going to be enough young people to shoulder the societal burden. All of this pressure has understandably led to a lot of societal division. South Korea has lots of Western ideas, brands, and influences, but most people still adhere to strict gender roles and traditional values. However, today women are increasingly rebelling against them. The 4B movement has been gaining traction for years, and it promotes women completely cutting themselves off from men by saying no to kids, marriage, intercourse, or even dating.
And I said they
Meanwhile, there's
just need
also
to
been a
move
huge
out.
backlash against all of this happening.
I wish it was
Remember
as simple
Bridge
as
all the
that,
way back
but
in the
no.
beginning? But one of the most high-profile cases where someone lost their life after jumping was based on this. An activist protesting against the changing social landscape threw himself off the bridge as a stunt, apparently assuming he would survive and swim to the shore. But despite having a very high average success rate at saving people, rescue workers took 3 days to find his body. And it doesn't matter where you personally stand on these issues. The fact remains that gender is just one of the many divisions that has actually crept into South Korean society. Age, income, social status, appearance, they're all being used to keep South Korea divided. With all of these long-term problems, you have to wonder why it's all been allowed to continue uninterrupted. Well, the answer actually reveals itself when you uncover the final piece of the puzzle. Who is benefiting from
What is
all
it?
this? Ever since the dictatorship ended, and even a bit
The
before,
corporations?
the real power in South Korea has rested with the chaebol. These family-owned conglomerates own nearly all of South Korea.
Knew
and
it.
they can get away with anything.
I be
We've
with
seen lessons
Samsung.
to influence throughout the story, like Samsung's dystopian signs on the Mapo Bridge. But everything that's damaged society has been a benefit to them. Take the academic competition. You've got millions of people competing and putting money into this exam to get into the top universities, and the end goal after all of this is a stable job at a chaebol like Samsung or Hyundai. It's a system that indoctrinates people for a lifetime of work, filtering out everyone who can't deal with the hardest problems in 12-hour days. The image-based culture also helps them. It keeps people occupied and concerned with other things. People's eyes will be on themselves or on the entertainment industry, never on what's really going on. The virtual world is just another level to this, and it also stokes the fires of social division as well. That helps them keep fighting over each other rather than the chaebols or
This
their
was a
control
very
over
dark
politics and
video.
life in general. In many ways, South Korea represents the future. In technology, entertainment, and culture, it seems like they're racing ahead. But all of the problems we've discussed are also becoming more prevalent here as well. Competition over earning a good living, and image-focused culture, and falling birth rates are all hitting the West right now. This is what happens to a society when it's left in the hands of
Oh, it's
people
happening all
designed
over the
to
world.
serve their
It's
interests,
happening in
and it's why
India.
South Korea is both a
It's happening in
dystopia and a
Japan.
warning to the West.
Like, this is a Bromo phenomenon, I would say. It's simple. Simple as that, like, Jesus Christ. It's a good